thanks for all of you coming out today. It's great to be here, see all your great exuberant faces and knowing that you're going to be entering the hospitality world, which is quite crazy, which I'm sure you probably already kind of have an idea. I got started in my career. I was working at a bowling alley snack shop and was making the burgers and steaming the buns and making hot dogs and all that, and decided that I really thought that was fun. Ended up being a bus person and then a server, and then went from just the regular server to a high-end server. Went to a private club, did tableside cooking, steak Diane, flambés, things of that nature, bananas Foster, and then ended up getting into a hotel from the restaurant business after I was a general manager for several years. Made the flip over to the hospitality side of hotels. Worked in Detroit at the Renaissance Center, which is it's the 73 floors downtown Detroit. It revolves 3 floors, 71st, 72nd, 73rd floors, and was a restaurant manager there. Ended up getting a calling to go to Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, where I started in convention services. From there, I did convention services, catering. I went as a banquet director, and that's what I was, as she mentioned, at Princeville on Kauai in Hawaii. And moved from there into catering, and was the catering director for several different hotels, and ended up here in wonderful Santa Barbara. And that's kind of what happens a lot. I'm sure these gentlemen can probably tell you as well, but you kind of bounce around a little bit, and in order to continue to rise in your level of management, if you're willing to make a move every couple of years, it really helps, and it's a great bump on your salary as well. Making that new adjustment and going to a different property really helped elevate my status and my salary. So that was always beneficial. That's kind of the short story of it.
When I got married, I was a classical French horn player, but I decided I needed to make money. So I started cooking. And first jobs were in the hotels, and I highly recommend hotels. You can learn everything in a hotel. There's nothing that they don't do. So I stayed in the hotel system for about 8 to 10 years. Lucky enough to get my first executive chef job, Holiday Inn, cross street from Disneyland, about before you guys were born, 1977, I think it was. Yeah, you were born then? Okay. The only one here. And, we opened a few restaurants. I worked executive chef downtown LA in a little cafe. Then I went into the hospital field. And that was due to, I didn't want to get divorced because you're in the restaurants, you get home at 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes half drunk, sometimes not, but you're home at 2 o'clock in the morning. And, you work hard, and it takes a couple hours just to wind down to get to sleep. So it's a whole bad spin. So I decided I got my first job in San Juan Capistrano at a small psych hospital, and with eating disorders, so on and so forth. Stayed there for about 8 years. Went on to another psych hospital, private, 55 hospitals across the United States. We got to fly around in Cessnas. We visited every hospital, opened new hospitals. Then the bottom fell out of the psych hospital field in the 90s. Went on to Sodexo. And Sodexo, I hit the hospital field, stayed in the hospital field for about 8 to 10 years. That's about 40 years, I think we're at now. And I highly recommend that structured. You get to work, 10 hours a day, 10 to 12, because you're an executive chef. You're responsible for everything. And then I went to the colleges. I was at the college at UCI executive chef for 7 years. Then we moved to beautiful Santa Barbara. My sister had to have us here. She's in the symphony, so it's good. Once a month, I get to see classical music, which is hear and see classical, which is great. But I really recommend for your sanity and to have the steadiness of a job like with Sodexo. You start early and you'll do well. They have wonderful resources. You can travel anywhere in the world with Sodexo if you choose to. And if you start early, you'll build up a good background for yourself. So that's about it for now.
Thanks, Geoffrey.
You're welcome.
I have a question. So you have Sous Chef on your...
Yes, I'm retired. Okay. This is my official retirement job. I can work 40 hours. I'm hourly, so I can't be slaved. And they will slave you, believe me. And I can call off a day without having the whole place fall in on me, because you got the executive chef to blame. And here's the executive chef, Vincent.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, I have a little bit similar parkour, I would say, Obviously, I'm not from here, so I was young and I didn't really know what to do, and cooking was always there in the back of my mind. And you got to think, that was 15 years ago. There was no Top Chef on TV. There was nothing popular on TV, right? Cook, we were chefs, So I told my mother, I said, I want to be a chef. She cried. She said, why? Why? Why would you do that? You can be a doctor, you could be a lawyer. No, I want to be a chef. And I wasn't really good at school, so that just kind of worked out. I went to culinary school. I did a short program, about 2 years. But that culinary school allowed me the opportunity to work in some of the French best kitchen, and that's what really is my background. I worked in Paris, that's where I'm from. I worked at the Ritz. I worked at a restaurant that you might know, it's a 3 Michelin star, called L'Astrance. Very, very tiny place. 20 covers, open for night only. 10, 12, 14 course menu. So that little tiny kitchen in the middle of Paris, we would do 350, 400 plates a night. And then I wanted to experience something different. So obviously I'm from the city, and I was like, city is awesome, but I want to see something else. So I went to work for Michel Bras, which is a 3 Michelin star, in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere. That was a great experience. And then I had the opportunity to go back to Lyon and work for 4 years at Institut Paul Bocuse. So you might know Mr. Paul. And then at the time, I had some connection with Starwood that was, pretty much doing all the paperwork, and doing visa all across the world, actually. And so I ended up at the St. Regis in Monarch Beach, so down south in Orange County. And I went from sous chef to executive sous chef. I stayed at St. Regis for 4 years, big box. 400 rooms hotel, $40 million in F&B, huge banquet operation, 5 restaurants on site, 5-star, 5 diamond. So extremely demanding job, countless hours, lots of pressure. People that, go to St. Regis, expect the very best, as they pay top dollar for it. So, but definitely learned a lot. After that, I had the opportunity to go to the Balboa Bay Resort in Newport Beach, so a little bit further north than Dana Point. And there, a new owners had come in and basically were done in the place. It was an old private club in Newport Beach. Nothing has been touched for the past 50 years, stuck in their way. And then the new company came in and just pretty much destroyed everything and rebuilt it. With them, I got lucky enough to open 4 restaurants down at the Newport Beach. And great experience. And then, I got a call and was like, we acquired Bacara a couple of years ago, and, we need to make some changes there. So, would you like to go? And I said, no, I'm not moving from Newport Beach. I had my team. I was good. No, I'm not doing that. And they were like, well, why don't you go check it out? Why don't you go help them out for a weekend? And then I went. And when I walked in, I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. And so here I am. I'm, at the Bacara for the past 10 months now. We have a new restaurant opening in June. Change everything: banquet menu, blend menu, grab and go menu. Pretty much everything under the sun has changed within the past 10 months. So that's how I ended up in Santa Barbara.
I'd get in by 7 because I wanted to get a full hour before the phone started ringing and other employees started getting in, and constant, nonstop, talking to clients, having appointments, cutting BOs. You guys know what BOs are? Not yet. Banquet orders, and that's basically where it's the catering or event's responsibility to get every single piece of information possible from the customer and put it on paper. And if I don't do my job, they're going to have a problem. Because if I don't ask the right questions, get the specifics that are needed for the event, I'm sure the chefs can tell you we have a lot of VIP menu tastings, especially for Westmont. They have their President's Breakfast coming up soon. And that is a chance for the client to meet with the chef, to talk over what kind of options we'd like for the guests for that day. And it's really crucial that you ask all the right questions, because if we, I mean, my dessert descriptions on my BEO would sometimes be paragraphs. I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but because it's such a detailed portion of the culinary experience, and it's the last experience that they're going to have before they walk out that door. So it's got to leave a lasting impression. And with my chef, he'd throw all these different things, and, you know, whether it's a nasturtium or whatever, or, you know, and I'd have to be taking notes on well, what kind of sauce did he say he wanted to go with that? And that's our job, is to get everything down on that piece of paper and then hand it over to the operations staff, whether it's stewarding, because they need to know what kind of dishes to pull, whether it's the chef, whether it's banquets. If I don't get every single piece of information on there, sometimes my BOs would be 3-4 legal pages long, just because there were so many specifics that needed to be followed, whether they wanted lemon in their water or not. You know, so anyway, talking, a lot of talking. By the time I get home at 7, 8 o'clock at night, I don't want to talk to anybody. I like to turn on the TV, get myself a cocktail, and you know, let them do the talking, because I'm done. I'm done for the day. And it's a 6-7 day a week job, which I'm sure these guys know about as well. When I first started, I was also doing weddings, which working Monday through Friday was my typical schedule, but then I was always there on the weekends. So I cut back, and my staff does weddings, but I still have VIP events all the time on the weekends. So, you know, and you're there till whenever you feel comfortable, which could be a lot shorter sometimes for these than these guys. I could be out by 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes it was later.
Well, my day is basically I go in and 7 o'clock in the morning and make sure everybody has the proper recipes, their proper tools, and they're taking their temperatures. And that's all throughout the day. And I primarily make the soups, any special desserts, and getting back to the BOs, they are living contracts. So if you are doing a catering, you follow that line by line, because that's what the client expects. And I've gotten myself in trouble by changing green beans to another vegetable.
Oh yeah, not
but
a good idea.
you can't do that.
No,
you can't do that. No. And you know, the college is a really great place. You get that energy from the young kids, and our food is as good, not as good as the Bacara, because we don't have the fillets coming in, the lamb chops coming in, but it's good. And it has to be good, because the client is expecting it. The kids are paying top bucks for this stuff. So, you know, when you are a chef, if you ever become a chef, you have to go out and talk to the people, and that's like what you were saying. Learn your customers, learn their likes, their dislikes, and it'll go a long way. And basically, that's my day. It's really nice now. As a chef, as an executive chef, it was 10 to 12 hours a day. 6 to 7 days a week. And that's hard on everything. Your marriage, your life, and you know, so keep it simple, keep it real, and be friendly, be happy, be outgoing. Believe me, the whole kitchen will pick up on your mood. If you come in there in a bad mood, the kitchen will be in a bad mood. So you gotta be positive, you know, no matter what it is, be positive.
My day, well, I come in a little bit later, coming around 9 o'clock, and then there is no typical day really. I mean, of course there is plenty of meeting lineup, and those go from, financial meetings that you have to answer to, labor costs, food costs. It's nothing, it's not rocket science really, honestly. And then, you of course meeting with clients, and then you have, your own little meeting with your staff, and, and whatnot, and then, service that is always in the middle of that. So you have to be able to multitask and see, and see the bigger picture. If, today it's a banquet for 500, lunch, whether Santa Barbara, Valley of Commerce, whatever it is, and you gotta be there for that. If the restaurants are gonna get hit and they need some support, you gotta be there for that as well. So, your two service, really, lunch and dinner are really important. And then, it's usually around 9 o'clock, 9 to 11 is my time to just catch up, email, menu proposal, things like that. So it's really a quiet time. So, 9 to 11 o'clock is a good day, 6-7 days a week. That's a normal week. Yes, sir.
Do you manage all of the restaurants at the Bacara, or is it simply the what?
I manage
like
all
the
the
cafe,
restaurants.
the Sea House or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's 110 cooks. It's a team of 40 stewards, so 150 people total that I'm responsible for.
What's a busy day for you guys?
A busy day would be a good banquet days. 500 people, breakfast, lunch, dinner, breaks on top of that. So that would be a busy day in banquets. After that, for restaurants, it would be Valentine's Day. We did over 200 covers on that on the 14th. Generating a total revenue of $80,000 for the day in restaurant. That's heavy. That's really heavy.
That was just for the steakhouse or for all of it?
No, for all of the restaurant altogether. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, so all meal period as well.
Awesome.
Are you able to influence your clientele if they have a menu that you think is not quite going to match, or do they pretty well know what they want? Can you tell them, well, this vegetable won't go with this fish or with this chicken? I mean, is there...
You really have both, you have clients that comes in, really open-minded and not caring so much, and you have, clients really opinionated about what they want, and those are a little bit, more difficult to deal with, but at the end of the day, this is your event, and I can make recommendation. If you don't want to listen to me, then, by all means, this is your big day, right? So...
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have someone to match the wines with the food, or is that...
We do. We have a sommelier on staff that can do that for you, if you want to.
Can I ask how old you were when you started cooking, and then how old you are now?
No. I'm 30 now. I started when I was 15.
I wanted to ask, Kathy, right?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, when you first started to go back to do these events, you took culinary classes. For how many years was that?
I did not.
Oh, you did not. So it was just basically your knowledge of cooking, and then you decided to go with the paperwork, learning the business. Was it a long time for you to have to study about what you need and how you have to order things and stuff like that, or did that just come naturally?
Things have so changed, obviously, now. I mean, nowadays, if you don't have a culinary degree of some sort, I think it's a lot harder to get where you want to go. With me starting so long ago, it was all on the job learning, and I was like a sponge. Really, my chefs are my mentors. They're just, I can't say enough good things about chefs, pastry chefs, all kinds of chefs. And I just soaked up all that knowledge throughout the years. I spent a lot of time on my own studying, and whoever asked about like pairing with the wines, it was so easy back when I started to pair wines. I knew everything there was to know about French wines, and I felt like I was on top of the world. Nowadays, somebody's making a wine in their backyard right now, and it's overwhelming. I can't imagine being a sommelier in this day and age. But I guess short answer, on the job training.
So we have the principles of baking class here today. So do you have any special words for the principles of baking class related to baking? Starting with you, Vincent.
I think that would be do not cut any corner.
Don't cut any corners.
Do not cut any corner. I mean, the baking, of course, is extremely precise in the recipe. When we cook, we always can, adjust. Even though there is some recipes that are not like that, but baking is extremely precise. From the moment you weigh it in to the moment you put it in the oven, to the temperature, to the thing you get out. And if you want a perfect result, it's got to be perfect from everything from the get-go. And then just cleanness.
Absolutely. It's chemistry. Baking is chemistry. That what leaves me out because I like to throw things together. But it turns out good sometimes, But baking is fun. I love baking. It's a great means. You need to mind out with your regular cooking. It's a good thing, and it gets you further as a chef if you know a little bit of baking. You can be more rounded and stuff. But I was lucky enough in year 2000, I went to school so I can get the background to see if I was doing anything right. I found out I was doing some things right and some things wrong, but it was a good learning experience. But one thing they taught us, you are a chef when you leave the school, and I'm telling them, no, you're not. You're not going to be a chef until 10 or 20 years down the road if you're lucky. There's a lot of luck in that. So, it's hard work, but very rewarding work.
I would say sometimes the simplest things are the things that go wrong, like a good brownie. Seriously, I mean, it's, you think, oh, a brownie, we've got it, chef mentioned breaks. There's a lot of revenue in breaks, and a lot of that is pastry and oriented, as you can so desire, whether it's a continental breakfast, whether it's an afternoon break and you're putting out something savory or something sweet. We had a problem doing brownies right there for a while, and that was one of our biggest complaints, and it's like, can you just give me a good, chewy, moist, awesome brownie? That's what I want. And then, of course, there's, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where, ting-tings are coming out of it and things are moving and, you got all these different sauces and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And sometimes those elaborate things that are the most beautiful aren't necessarily the tastiest.
What's your favorite bakery item that you have at the Bacara?
Croissant.
Oh, and they're baking them today.
Yeah, so we have a baker on staff. He's been here since day one, and we buy French butter. So we get the good stuff for it, and we have a good croissant.
And at Westmont, what is the favorite desserts that you guys make?
Cookies, more cookies, lots of cookies, and cobblers, home-style bread puddings. Guys, learn how to do a good bread pudding, please. That got me a long way in this world. Savory bread puddings too, so you can pair those with your entrees. Yeah, so everything, anything in a book we do. Asian, wok, burgers, chicken, tons of chicken. We go through probably about 400 pounds of chicken every 3-4 days. So we tear through this stuff. The kids I'm at a Christian college, so the kids don't complain, which is a bummer because you learn through complaints. You want to know what we're doing wrong. Not everything's good here.
Bless you.
Yes, bless you. Yes. And it's the weirdest thing, when I first got there, the kids would return the dishes to the dishwasher and say, thank you. Okay.
Favorite? People. You obviously have some bad days when, at times, not everybody's going to be happy, and like you said, you are going to get complaints, and that's how you learn. That's how you try and make things better. But really, and just when you throw a good event, you have a good private banquet, it's the most rewarding thing that you can ever do. I mean, when we're done with Dish Up, and a lot of times, half the management staff is back in the kitchen because we need help for a plate up for 2,000. You get done plating that entree and it's just like, oh, that's awesome, and then you run out to the front and everything's going well, and you see your client and there's a big smile on their face. It's the most rewarding thing ever. Least. You've said it a couple times, so I'll say it. I mean, you are kind of a slave, you know? You are. And you have to take that with a grain of salt, and you really have to learn how to, I don't want to say manage your time, because really you don't have much time outside of the hotel. You really don't. But to try and keep yourself healthy, to try and exercise, and to try and have some bit of a quality of life outside of work is important.
Planning is one of my favorite things to do, so I make lists. A week list and a daily list. Coming to work is my favorite part. Smelling the bacon cooking, getting that fresh piece of bacon out of the oven, you know, and talking to the crew and seeing how their day is going, and going out and talking to the client, to the customers. Least favorite is sleeping, waking up with leg cramps because we don't have mats. That's the least favorite. But potassium's the answer to that. Yeah, watermelon juice, yeah, it's that sort of thing. But eat healthy, try not to get stressed, plan. Your biggest asset is planning. If you plan it out, things will go to plan, hopefully.
Least favorite is probably the amount of time that you spend in meeting, you know, discussing financial. That's the least favorite part of my days, because it just takes away of what we, you know, all wanted to do at some point, and it's cooking, right? So that's difficult for me. And now, like, the favorite part of my day, I mean, I don't know, I don't really have any, but at the same time, I don't really feel like I'm working. I do what I love, and that's the best feeling ever, you know. I don't really have to work a day in my life. I, you know, go to Bacara, I do my thing, and I'm happy. So that would be it, I think.
That's like the ultimate goal of a career plan.
It is, you know, I mean, find what you're passionate about, and you won't have to work a day in your life. This is a very true statement.
Yeah, sorry.
I would say expand your horizon. You're lucky enough to, you know, have a young generation. You have plenty of social media, you know, that you can reach. I mean, there is so many things now, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. Like, you know, just follow that and, like, look what they do. I mean, in France, in Japan, Asia. I mean, there is some really cool stuff that are done out there, and, like, just, you know, get that inspiration, like, get that motivation to strive to that and do the best, and, you know, and that should be your goal. And don't cut corner. Never cut corner.
Never cut corners. Okay. Thank you.
Keep an open mind. Keep the information coming. Talk to people. Read. Travel. And traveling is the biggest asset I ever did. You know, see how other people operate, and go in the back of a restaurant and introduce yourself. And our chefs are open. We love to have visitors and stuff. So, you know, talking to other people, like Kathy was saying, every couple of years, there's nothing wrong with taking a job here, there, to get that learning experience. Pick out a chef you want to learn from. You know, just keep it simple and get a good pair of shoes.
I guess I'll piggyback on Chef Vincent. Back in my day, food cost was not so focused as it is now. It's all about food cost. It's all about what kind of profit you're going to bring to the bottom line now. And you're really going to need to know every single thing you do in the bake shop costs you money. Every pat of butter that you use, if you can get down the mathematics of it and really know what you're doing instead of just creating, but you know, chef's going to come to you at some point and go, okay, well, this is what so-and-so Westmont decided for their 3-course gala dinner, and I need to know how much that dessert's going to cost. And you need to have an answer, because that's how he's going to base the price of what they're going to charge the client. I feel really sorry for chefs nowadays that it's all about the profit and loss. It's all about the P&L. And where you're landing with your food cost. Our food cost is actually lower at Fess Parkers than our beverage cost, which back in the day, food costs ran maybe in the 50%. Now you got to be under 20 for overall hotel. And I think that's just ridiculous, to be honest. kind of takes the fun out of it.
I have a question for all three of you. When you want to open up a restaurant, is it really true that the first 3 years are probably going to be the hardest? Starting your restaurant, getting things familiar with what you're going to put on your menu, the people who are coming, what clientele will you be serving? How big should your wine bar be? Is it really, I mean, that's almost devastating to have to work with something like that?
Research, keep it simple. I've been going out to San Ynez and out over the hill there. There's some wonderful new places. Opened up in just factories, you know, industrial eats. Long tables, community seating, wonderful food, simple, great food, you know, real olive oils. They create their own meats. They do everything there. You know, just do your research. Research.
Having a good butcher, right?
Well, you are. You're not going to be able to afford one.
That's true.
You know, learn to do everything so you know if it's done right. You know, where you're wasting your money, you know. But when you plan for your restaurant, make sure you plan for your salary. Do not shortchange yourself on that. Because
Don't do it for free.
no, please. Only work for the hotels for free.
I won't comment on it as I don't have the necessary experience to. I did open a few, and having a good amount of cash flow is definitely a big plus. And that doesn't mean it comes from you. That means you find somebody that you know is willing to invest in you and is believing in your project or what you're trying to to achieve. So that would be my 2 cents. You know, partner with somebody, you know, have a good amount of cash flow, and you know, and do your thing.
As executive chef, do you see a lot of losses in the places that you worked at?
Yes and no. Individual outlets will sometimes lose money, depending on, you know, traffic, season. But I mean, overall, F&B, no. I've never done 1 month that we lost money in F&B. I've come close to it, but never. Well, you know, I mean, there is things, you know, I mean, hotel construction, things like that would just destroy your business, and then, you know, it's kind of like, hey. But I mean, it picks back up once you're done. That would depend where you would like to, or where you would see yourself working. I mean, I think like, you know, social skills, just basic social skills, and, you know, see how you interact with people. You know, it's probably the first thing we would look at. And then if you have a little bit of experience, that would be a plus. But, you know, I mean, we probably wouldn't start you as a server right away. Probably would start you as a food runner or a busboy, and you kind of make your way up. I mean, it depends what position you are playing for. But I mean, I personally don't necessarily believe in Resumé. I believe in the human beings, the interaction we're going to have at that point, see how you act. A little trick with me is that I'm going to walk you somewhere, and if you're 10 feet behind me, probably not going to hire you. But if you're trying to keep up with me, then, you know, you have a chance at it. So just little thing like that. So, I mean, yeah, for me, it's just more like how you're going to present yourself, what you bring to the table, you know, what kind of attitude do you have, you know.
Interest for your interview. Yeah, that's very important.
Thank you.